Previously on the Game On podcast.
Because you didn't have, you only played so you played under Greg Anderson, Robert Pyman, Gary, of course under John Cale and Clay Sampson. Robert Pyman was the one where you played finals, the only finals appearance in 2006, Benny. So it was a bit of a lean pickings in that sort of regard.
Very tumultuous times. We've only played the one final series. We had Ron Fuller at the end of my career, Gary Cameron, the former Geelong Cat, and South Adelaide Panther. I think he took the reins for about 4 or 5 games there at some stage. So
from John Cale,
six coaches, I think it was. So 5 or 6. But it was great to be coached by Jack. I was a Port Adelaide supporter as a kid, so really idolised Jack, and he only lasted 6 games, which was interesting. But we won. I think we won 3 of them and lost the next 3, and then he was gone. So
interesting times there.
Oh, wow.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, and once again joined by Malcolm. And Benny gave us some insights into the ever-evolving and revolving coaching merry-go-round that does happen at some clubs.
Yeah, South Adelaide certainly. You were never in line for long service leave there.
Obviously, we'd like most teams, stability is everything. And if you've got a coach that can hang around for a little while and hopefully keep the board out of the coaching area, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, some clubs cook their own goose effectively beforehand.
Yep.
Around the grounds.
All right, mate, we'll have a bit of a look at the AFL. We've got our top 8 predictions today for the AFL, a little bit of SANFL news, Adelaide United in the soccer. But, mate, we're going to kick off with cricket.
Yeah, Australia did come back in the third test. I thought after losing the toss, not out off the first ball of the game and the first an LBW in the first 2 overs, first 3 overs of the game, you thought, uh-oh. And then all of a sudden, once the spinners came on, it turned square. Mm-hmm. Shocking wicket again. India did bat poorly.
Yes.
But it was very frustrating just how poor these pitches have been.
When they started to get 80, 90 ahead, you worried that it was going to be a little too much, considering the pitch was deteriorating. But Travis Head was fantastic up the order and really took the game to them. It's
an extraordinary game when you're chasing 76 and you're thinking the game's evenly poised now, and then getting a wicket second or third ball. You thought, but they fought there for a while, and then they swapped the ball over, and Travis then took to town.
Yeah. I heard a little bit of a comment during the week from an ex-Australian player: do not drop Travis Head ever again.
Well, I do hope he goes back in the middle order in England. Yeah. I don't want to see him batting against Anderson and Broad with a Duke's ball straight up.
I think that they've already flagged that he will come back down into the middle order, and he's got such great value there. And I suppose in India now it's just take a bit of a punt, try a couple of things that may work, may not work, and see how you go.
Oh, look, too, he's a bit like Doug Walters. He can win you a test match. If he can win one test match a series, he's done his job.
Yep.
And that's where Ian always said about Doug, I want Doug in my side. Mm-hmm. And if he wins me one game, maybe 2,
we'll take
can't
it.
Ask for anything more.
Absolutely. Do you think Steve Smith taking over the captaincy was a little bit of a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it was a good thing. Look, and let's be fair too. Cummins has probably had other things on his mind. That's understandable. And look, I think also Steve Smith or someone in the Australian setup, and it's amazing it's taken this long, discovered a loophole in the referral.
Yes, DRS, yep.
So Carey kept taking the bails off, no matter where the batsman was. There was one ball he took where both feet were behind the line. And I'm thinking, geez, Alex, what are you doing? Then I see Steve Smith going to appealing for the stumping. Now, really poor umpiring. The umpire just should have gone not out. But no, he referred it above. Everything then gets referred, and it turned out it was caught behind, and Australia didn't lose. They didn't risk losing a review out of it. So it was it's smart thinking,
knowing the rules,
but a loophole. Yeah.
Knowing the rules.
Yeah.
I just felt that Steve Smith was just a little bit calming influence and just gave them a bit of stability with things going on the ground, and the wicket wasn't exactly playing friendly, so you had to do something a little bit different, and I just think he handled it very, very well.
Probably a bit more proactive, and let's not forget, back in that second test, we had them 7 for 160, so if we bowled them out for 180 to 190 then, had closer. The 60 to 70-odd lead on the first innings, that probably would have been enough.
Yeah. So really, at the end of the day, it's almost a pass mark for the trip to India at the moment on the basis of their performance. I'd probably say the selectors got it a bit wrong, certainly right from the get-go, but they've made up for it. And
the lack of warm-up games. That's something which I will go on about till the cows stop eating grass.
Yep, absolutely. Now, the fourth test has begun today, but this podcast will go out tomorrow, but we're currently sitting 2 for 75.
Just before lunch.
Just before lunch on day one. Interesting start to the game. Playing ducks and drakes a bit with the pitches again.
Yeah.
2 pitches prepared.
Oh, bizarre. And look, we were none for 60 odd after the first hour. Travis was away. He got dropped an absolute soda on 3. And he got to 32 off 44 balls, and look, went hit over the top. That's the game he plays.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, Travis is never a guy where you think he's in. It's not. I watch Travis obviously bat all the time at Shield games, and you never just casually go to the canteen or the toilet and go like you did with Darren Lehman, knowing he'd still be batting when you came back.
Yep.
Travis has never been like that.
It's feast or famine.
Oh.
A little bit.
Yes.
Wajda currently on 27 off 93 balls, and Steve Smith 2 off 17 at the moment. So, look, I think if we can get off to a good start in day one and not play some silly shots and give away our wickets too much, we could probably build a pretty good innings to bowl at.
If we can get at least 250 to 280, they're right in the game.
Absolutely.
So trial matches are fully done, mate?
Yeah, the 9 games obviously played last weekend, so everyone got a trial game. There's a couple of internals the week before and a couple of trial games. We'll start with Adelaide and Port Adelaide, obviously travelling over to WA. I thought it was a pretty successful campaign from the Crows, considering that they really need things to go their way a little bit.
Look, they've shown a fair bit of promise. There's no doubt about that.
Again, it's trial games. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah. But I think you've really got to back yourself to start playing well early to give you confidence that you're doing the right things for the match game plan, for the coaches to sort of say, hey, this is what it looks like when you get it right.
Especially a young side. If you play your first couple of trial games, you've got thumped in both, like North Melbourne. North Melbourne did with Western Bulldogs on the weekend.
Yep.
You probably does knock the stuffing out, where at least they attack round one against GWS with a fair bit of confidence.
Absolutely. So, I just think that they're taking strides in the right direction. Now we go across the road to Port Adelaide, and strange pre-season for them. They looked really sluggish against Freo on the weekend, and they weren't all that convincing against West Coast the week before either. And I know, a couple of new players into the setup does change things a little bit, but they just seem like they're treading water a little bit at the moment.
Probably for me, the most worrying thing is yet again they had way more inside 50s than the opposition and lost. Now that was the common theme last year.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem getting the ball inside, but their connection structures wide in that regard are still lacking. Look, Fantasia needs some footy. Let's everyone remember he's missed over a year, so he needs footy. Rioli pulled out and didn't play. They probably need him. So look, I still think they're going to be around the mark, but they play Brisbane first up. It's the last thing they want to do is have a slow start because, Port supporters are carrying on like pork chops as it is, with Inkley. So,
we'll talk about that one a little bit later in our extra time big finish because we've got a toss up on that one there. Melbourne, I think, are quite impressive, and Brisbane are probably the other two that have stood out. We talked last week about to practice match or trial match or not to trial match. Now, you talked about Port Adelaide there as a good example. they're in a different phase than, say, what the Crows are.
Yes.
So, they're trying to get game time into some of their stars that they've recruited and try and get them into the system that they've got built there. If they don't have trial games, does that put them in more risk or less risk of those first 4 or 5 games where they're still trying to figure it out a little bit?
Yeah, it is a catch-22, and I understand the clubs wanting it. Just for me, it sort of feels like half the season's gone when you start the first game. At least it's only been 2 this time, not 3. So I do think that's a step in the right direction.
Yep.
So I can see both. But for me, Port, the question marks are in ruck.
Yep.
Isaac hasn't answered that.
Their back line a little bit.
A key defender. And their connection. So of all the Port question marks before the start of the year, they haven't answered any of them. That is a bit of a worry.
That is a big worry for Port Adelaide. I totally agree. As I mentioned, Melbourne and Brisbane seem to be the standouts as well. The Gawn and Grundy combination seems to have worked pretty well, and Brisbane look like they've just tinkered with their game plan a little bit, that they're going a little bit faster, which I think is going to serve them well.
Yeah, well, you put Dunkley and Ashcroft into that midfield, all of a sudden the ball's going your way another 30-odd times anyway.
And then you've got Gunston who can take a grab as well and kick a goal. So
I think Dunstan will actually be very important for getting people in the right spots.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Brisbane's had that in the last couple of years, a forward like Neville Roberts was brilliant.
Yep.
Neville Roberts could have a game where actually Neville Roberts struggled standing David Wildy overall, but don't dare think that he didn't.
He didn't direct traffic. Yeah. A little bit like Luke Hodge in the back line when Brisbane was starting to build. He was very good at marshalling here and there, and Campbell Brown did the same for Gold Coast.
There was a game, Crows Hawthorn, and Hodge was mic'd up. Now, normally I'd sit there and go, that's blah, wah, Steve Mark, wah.
But you were listening with intent.
Yeah, that was fascinating that night, and he was brilliant.
Yep. So Gunston brings that a little bit to Brisbane, which I think, especially with a pretty exciting forward line, that could really just elevate them and get those scores that they need to get them over the line.
Well, it just adds to their dimensions and their chances.
Absolutely. Mate, the AG Playing Service had a concert on it a couple of nights ago. Has come up not very good at all. Your thoughts on that one, mate?
They're professional at replacing. They've got it down to a fine art.
Yep.
It'll be fine.
Yep. I'm in the same boat. You sort of look at the pictures and go, I don't know. But then you see the work that these guys do these days, and they get a crew of guys in, and 2 days later it's actually very, very good. So it'll be very interesting, obviously, with the first match being played on Thursday night next week. So we'll see how we go. And my last one on the AFL to start with tonight, mate, the MRO decision you made mention to me a bit earlier.
I'm bitterly disappointed that Cochin didn't get a game. I just couldn't work that out.
Is it a bit of protected species a little bit?
It certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible that the lack of action against him. For mine, that's just a game for stupidity. Don't worry about anything else. Just the common sense angle. Trent, don't be a bloody idiot.
Yep.
You can miss round 1 for being a dickhead, effectively.
Yep.
Now, I can't get over how so many people still can't understand the Jordan De Goey tackle is a massive no-no.
Yep.
It's any spear tackle, I'm all for going for it now. I'm go for the benefit of the doubt against the person laying the tackle.
Yep.
But so many people have kept saying, oh, no, it's a great tackle. No, it wasn't.
Yep.
It's a shithouse tackle. It was putrid.
We can't live in yesteryear as far as that goes. No. Only because it's a very litigious society at the moment. And we can talk about this a little bit now. That the game's really coming around concussion and really looking after players' health and safety, because that is their workplace. It's
exactly.
It's not a part-time sport anymore. It's a professional sport, and that is their workplace.
It's not a kick and a catch.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's dangerous.
Absolutely.
That tackle is dangerous.
Yeah, I think I'm all for good tackles. Don't get me wrong, and I'm all for laying a hard, solid tackle. But you do have to take a little bit more care these days. And I think because we concentrate so much on the athleticism of a player, we talked a little bit about the kicking abilities that has dropped off a little bit in the last couple of years. It may come back. It seems this year that seems to be the trend, that skills are a little bit up at the moment. So that seems to be it. I think you got to get back to the days of where you actually are coaching tackling properly.
Yes.
15, 20 years ago, even when I was playing 25 years ago, you get a rugby guy that would come in and it's just hit this guy at 1,000,000 miles an hour and bury him into the ground. You can't do that anymore.
Those days are gone.
Exactly right.
You've got a duty of care.
Yeah.
Did Jordan De Goey display it in the first place with the tackle? No, but he did let him go just in time.
Yes.
So that he did display the duty of care there. But overall, he still hasn't displayed a duty of care, which is the way it is written and governed now and the way I'm involved enough in the tribunal procedures with the club, as we know. And, yeah, it's a massive no-no. So I think he's lucky.
Yeah, and just on that, do the umpires actually go around to each club and give them vision on what they expect and what they obviously don't expect?
Yeah, the AFL do a tape at the beginning of each year. Now,
but do the umpires visit those clubs, or is it just the umpire's boss that does that?
They've been doing it a bit more this year, is my understanding, going around and umpiring trials and match simulation and all that.
Is that also part of the 4 umpiring?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so a little bit more engagement from the umpires as well.
Yep.
Well, look, if they're giving them videos at the beginning of the year, and I know most team meetings you'd be sitting down watching a video on what to do and what not to do, players would want to take heed of that information and really look out for it. But you cross the white line, you get in that moment. It's a footballing thing, but you do have to be very, very careful.
I know what's going on enough, and I can categorically state that someone from Collingwood blasted him and told him to basically, we can't afford you being suspended. You've got to be better than that.
Absolutely. Yes, to watch and see on that one, but hopefully we don't get too many of those incidents this year, and let's just fingers crossed.
And I thought Bruce was a little bit lucky, but I thought the opposition player contributed to that more with a jump and that. So I can see that one
You've got to take it into you've got to take it into account as to what's happening. Yep. All right, mate. We move on to the cricket. The Redbacks, they ran into an absolutely red hot WA team, but really didn't help themselves along the way either.
We started well with our 1 for 26 in the 10th. There'd been so Johnson got Philippi out in the first over. There'd been a close LBW against Bancroft. They could have been 2 for 13, and it would have been game on completely different. But South Australia's fielding, mate, if Henry Thornton's under a catch to save my life, can you make sure you organise the wake and have a decent wake? Because he cannot catch. Absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah, fair call. Especially at that level. Yes, it's not the top echelon national representation, but it's first-class cricket. Exactly right.
It was absolutely pitiful.
Unfortunately, yes, 389, the Sandgropers set us, which was always going to be a pretty mighty target, and all bowled out for 207, yeah.
Look, they started well. Kelvin Smith came into the side at the last minute, his first game for the year. Jake Carter did a hamstring in the warm-up. Different. Yeah, quite at cricket, so that's different. But look, I'm a Kelvin Smith fan.
Yep.
I've made my point there. I still think he's South Australia's best opening batsman, so I'm really hoping he plays the last Shield game and proves a point.
Well, most one-day teams, international one-day teams, would have struggled with WA's lineup as well. I mean, that's the other thing.
Well, you just go through who missed out.
Yeah.
Cartwright, Paris, it's just been incredible. Like the last Shield game, Turner, Philippi and Stoinis missed out in their last Shield game. So there is an obscene depth over in WA at the moment. And look, if I was South Australia, there are a couple I would target there. I'd very happily see Turner captaining our side, and I'd have Philippi here in a heartbeat to be the second keeper after Carey.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a call upstairs to the Saka and see how you go, mate. Obviously, WA have set down this path of promoting their younger players, and do you think SA sort of in that sort of track at the moment or heading towards it?
Maybe. We need a couple of younger guys to come through, like Patrick Page from Teacher Gully looked a couple of years ago to be a youngster and he hasn't really kicked on. Kelvin Smith, but sort of got discarded ridiculously early, and he's still only 28, 29. He's one, obviously, thing. Drew makes 100 last game last year and then doesn't play round one this year, I thought was extraordinary. So
confidence is a wonderful thing. If the coaching group or selection shows confidence in you, it makes a huge difference to the way you attack your game.
There's There's been some interesting selections, to say the least.
And just to finish off, mate, it was a great thing that SA did make the final. Especially, we needed a little bit of hope, obviously, from the Redbacks. But do you see anything that we can run differently with the one days for the state leagues?
It's a hard one. I'd like to see probably more games earlier.
Yeah,
and that. Like I admit, this week they're playing. I'm talking Adelaide turf level, but they're playing 2020 finals now. Mm-hmm. Well, hang on, it's dark.
Yep.
Too early. Yeah, there's been some strange things in that way. I think the programming could be better. Look, I'd love to see far less. I'd love to see more importance put on Sheffield Shield than the Big Bash, but as we know, that won't happen.
Oh, it's a money spinner, mate, unfortunately, and that's the way it goes. Yep. All right, mate, we'll leave the cricket there. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back shortly.
You're listening to the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Continuing our AFL theme for this week, St Kilda blame human error for some leaked audio.
Just embarrassing.
Wow.
Really. Bizarre, unprofessional. Yeah, human error, but it's strange.
Is it common, though, that clubs are recording their coaches, or is that more of a playback, see how we can improve, KPIs? I don't know. It's really weird when you see it. You go, well, hang on, what's going on there?
Different. I admit I don't get it.
And it got sent to every AFL club and they all had access to it for about an hour. So whether some clubs accessed it or not, or whether they didn't know it was there and they were able to delete it straight away.
I'll guarantee a few clubs would have seen it, so therefore every club would have seen it by now.
Fair enough. Essendon Great comes out and calls players mentally soft. Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it was honest.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, there was a game last year where Parker got stuck into a couple of from Sydney. Mm-hmm. Luke Parker got stuck in a merit, a couple for not being physically tough enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry, you got to wear it a bit as well there.
Mm-hmm. Do we see Essendon changing that this year?
Wait and see. I'm not sure in their list is capable of doing that.
No, but Scott is a pretty fiery guy in general. You'd have to say there'd be a little venom there at some stage, and I'm sure he's going to have a spray somewhere within the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, you can't see him keeping his cool if they start to struggle. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Totally agree. All right, mate, the big one that we've all been waiting for. Let's go for our top 8 predictions.
Let's go for who we think is certain.
This is how I approached it as well, and we had a brief chat before we started, and we're sort of in agreement that basically we're going to break it into 3 sections. We've got the ones we think can make it, we've got the ones that we think might make it, and then we've got the ones that they cannot make it. So do you want to start with
I've personally
top to bottom or bottom to top?
We'll start at the top. I've got 5 teams that I can't see missing the 8. Brisbane, Sydney, Geelong, Melbourne and Richmond are my 5 that I can't see missing.
I can't disagree. I've got Geelong, Sydney, Melbourne, Richmond and Brisbane. So I think we're all in agreement there. I think their programs are pretty well established now, and we know what brand they're going to come with, and they're just going to do it slightly better this year or slightly different this year.
I'm also a bit of a fan of teams who've lost the close games the year before, which was Richmond, tend to rebound that, and it tends to work a bit the other way, which I see therefore why I haven't got Collingwood as an absolute cert.
I'm in the same boat as well. I look at that as well. What about your might-bees or could-bees?
Collingwood, Carlton, Port Adelaide.
Okay. So I've got my could-bees.
And Western Bulldogs,
yes, that's what I was going to say too. I've got my could-bees as the Western Bulldogs, Carlton, Collingwood, Freo.
Yep.
I've got a couple more in that area that and Port Adelaide, actually, that I think could be in that area there. And the ones that sit just below that could surprise a few are probably Adelaide, Gold Coast, and possibly St Kilda, but injuries are starting to kill them early.
Yeah, I think injuries have caught up already. Yeah.
So I'm holding on St Kilda, but I think Gold Coast, Adelaide, and Essendon could be the ones that could shock a couple if it all goes right. It has to all go right.
Yeah. Yep. And look, it is time Gold Coast made it. Everything. So, their
stats add up.
So I tell you what, the Freo Gold Coast is a huge game in the gather round at the home of football. So yeah.
Yes, that is going to be an interesting one. Very, very interesting. All right, who are your can't make it, can't see them making it?
Hawthorn.
Yep.
North Melbourne.
Yep.
And West Coast.
Yep. I've got GWS in that boat as well.
Yeah, probably, but I just still think on their youth they're an outside.
Okay, so they're sort of in my middle group that could surprise a couple if everything goes right. Yeah, totally agree.
Yep.
North Melbourne, West Coast, Hawthorn, and I had GWS, but I think you're right. They're just on that borderline. Yeah. So I'd probably put St Kilda down in that because of injuries.
Yeah.
And then maybe GWS comes up as well. So fairly similar.
Yeah, we are.
We'll keep a recording of this here and we'll play it back, obviously, as the year goes on. But I can't see too many surprises from that list at the moment that is going to take the game and change it dramatically.
You wouldn't think so.
What about minor premiership? Who are you sort of leaning towards for that at the moment? Because I've got a three-way race for it.
Yeah, I've got two. I'll go three-way as well. Brisbane, Melbourne, or Richmond.
Yeah. Oh, you're going Richmond?
Yeah.
Oh, very, very good. I'm going Brisbane, Geelong, and Melbourne.
Yeah, I just think Geelong, after you finish the season late and all that,
yep,
I'd be surprised. And their age, I'd be surprised if they were minor up. I still think they'll be top four.
I think they're going to be a momentum team, a bit like Richmond were a couple of years ago, where they'd done it 2 years in a row or 2 out of 3 years. Took a little bit to get started for the year, and then as that momentum built, they were just irrepressible. And I think Geelong are going to be a bit in that boat.
Yeah, I admit I did have a chat to T. Harley about that on the weekend, and his thought process about that yes, while Sydney were very disappointing on the day, he thinks that Geelong team in time will be remembered as one of the better ones of the modern era, which I thought was interesting on that way as well.
And obviously they were quite a young team too, so they sort of got them at the wrong time, if that makes sense.
Yep.
What about Brownlow medal? You got a couple of predictions for a Brownlow medal?
I'll go Bontempelli.
Yeah, I've got him on my list as well.
Clayton Oliver, Petrarca.
I've got Petrarca.
Those two are pinching votes off each other.
Yep.
Oh, look, Cripps is obviously a chance again. Still waiting for him to be suspended from last year. What a stuff up that was.
Hey, come on, don't plug the Carlton guys, mate. Come on, we need something.
Yeah, exactly. Look, and you'd think probably Dunkley and Ashcroft arriving that they might pitch votes off each other with Lockie Newell. So I'll go the Bont though.
Okay, I'll go my top three. I got Bontempelli. I got Brayshaw.
Yes, can't argue with that.
Can't argue with that. And I reckon Cripps might back up.
Yep.
But then I've got rose-coloured glasses on being Carlton. So if I had to take anybody else out of that, I'd have to say Lockie Newell.
Yep.
I think pretty solid contributor. What about the Coleman, mate?
I'm a Charlie Curnow fan. But him and Mackay against each other, maybe. But I think it's really hard. There's no one jumps out and hits you.
No.
In terms of full forward wise. If Danaher from Brisbane got a full year, but you can't bank on that.
Yep.
Lynch from Richmond's obviously a big chance, but again, will his body hold up as well?
Yep.
If I'm forced, I'm going Curnow from Lynch.
Okay. Well, I've got Hawkins, Cameron, Curnow, but my smoky, being that it's a pretty good forward line, is Darcy Fogarty.
Yeah, maybe. I just look. I think Hawkins misses the start of the year, and I reckon it's a little bit not sure how many he's going to miss.
Yep.
Hang on, he had that injury in last year's finals, and it's still not right now. So who's to say that he's not going to miss the first 5 or 6?
Yep.
And you're just not sure how they'll use Jeremy Cameron because he's so good on ball and that floater that they'll probably use him there as well with a needs basis. And maybe Henry even ends up playing full forward a bit more. So that's sort of great player, Cameron, arguably probably the best forward overall in the game, but I'm just not sure he'll spend enough time close to goal for that.
Can someone like Nat Fyfe win Winner Coleman, obviously transitioning out of the midfield.
Yeah.
He now picks up, if he plays forward predominantly, he picks up a backman, whereas before he was the floating forward off the midfield. And
look, unfortunately, you can't. I'm not backing his goal kicking with your pants on, let alone mine. No. So, I wouldn't back that. So
fair enough. I think my Smokey's Fogarty.
Yeah,
I think the delivery. He seems to be on a real confidence at the moment. I think Tex. Now, this is the interesting thing about Tex is he's hung around for a year, 2 extra. That has benefited Darcy Fogarty in a bit like we were talking before in Gunston coming in and directing traffic a little bit and, sort of keeping players in certain areas to open up fat side for another player. And, I think he's going to benefit from it dramatically.
Yeah, look, and Tex is still a great organiser. Look, hopefully he'll go better than he did on Tuesday night. Tex, unfortunately, the Crow side went down. Tex did get out first ball. One guy for Jets Cross took 5 for 15, all 5 bowled. So there was certainly no doubt on any of his dismissals.
They were really having a go. And my last one for the AFL, mate, who is your premiership prediction, pre-season premiership prediction? Let's put it that way.
I'll go Melbourne-Brisbane grand final. Melbourne.
I go Melbourne-Brisbane grand final also, but Brisbane winning it.
Yep, that's fine.
There you go. So we'll keep this fun and we'll play it back. Yep. All right, we move on, mate. We'll stick with the footy. SANFLW, season underway.
Yeah, look, and it's been a really close comp. Like Nord have lost all 3 games. I think it's a combined total, I think it's 10 or 11 points.
11 points, I think it is.
Yeah, and they were 10 points up with 92 seconds to go last week. So that was, but to Central's credit, they kept that up. Probably also a case where the 666 and the anti-density rules come into play, kept the team in the game. Because previously, 10 points up, they just would have stacked the back line. You can't do that.
Yep.
So, that's a situation where the rule works.
Happy International Women's Day for yesterday to all the women out there that could be listening. I think Nord have been a bit stiff, but they seem like the system's working really well. You were at the first game. I had a bit of a look online on the second game. Systems and procedures look pretty good. I think it's just a matter of a couple of key moments that will turn things around.
Oh, look, I think it's a good competition overall. Southwest Adelaide went right down to the wire as well. Probably the surprising one was Sturt went down by about 4 goals against Glenelg. But overall, it's been a very even comp. I admit I'm in the commentary box for the Sturt West Adelaide game at Hisense Arena, Richmond, on Sunday. So, looking forward to that.
Fantastic. All right, we'll stick with the SANFL. We'll have a little bit of a club preview of a couple of clubs over the next couple of weeks, but we'll just do one tonight. We'll have a look at the Adelaide Crows to start with.
Unfortunately, and I don't mean to be pedantic on it, totally depends on injuries.
Yep.
At AFL level. If the Crows don't get too many injuries at AFL level, they'll finish top 3 SANFL.
Yep.
They get injuries like Port did last year, they'll fall away.
Yep.
And it really
I think
that
it's
simple.
It's hard to argue with that because we've seen it previously that injuries do sort of cost those SANFL teams. Yes, they're an AFL reserve side that is using top-up players, but I think you're right. I think they're going to be in the top 5 this year once again. I think their fitness under Darren Burgess is going to be a lot better than what it was 12 months ago, and if they can stay healthy, you're right, they're going to be a bit of trouble, and they could be the first AFL reserves team to win an SANFL premiership.
Oh, look, I will be honest, let's say when the team sheets came through last year and El Pedler was a laid out for Adelaide, we weren't exactly shattered as Redlegs.
Well, from what we've seen this year in the AFL trial games, he looks like he's going to be a gun this year.
He can play.
Absolutely. I don't see him spending too much time in the SANFL this year for sure. All right, mate. Nord Oval to showcase AFL football. Does this enhance Nord's standing in the SANFL?
I think so. I admit I was pretty surprised last night with a thing on what's the best ground at SANFL level wise, and so many people, a lot of I think people just went to their club, and I think the likes and dislikes for that club came into play because a lot of people had Nord last, which is that's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I think Nord's the best SANFL oval in terms of I think on that For me, the big one I want is undercover seating. If it's a chance to get wet, a rainy day, you know you can get a seat at Nord.
Yep.
Now, you can't guarantee that at any other ground.
Yep. Port Adelaide, maybe. That's and North Adelaide a touch.
Yeah, to some extent.
Yep.
But that's a little bit more who's a member, that side of thing.
Yes.
Where Nord, you've got the grandstand at the parade end, anyone can sit in.
Yep.
So, for me, that's big. Plenty of toilets at Nord. Yes, a couple of them need, especially down the Roger Woodcock end, needs fixing up.
Northern end.
But overall, they're currently changing the canteen up, which I personally thought was no problem at all, but they're making it more like the Adelaide Oval one. You walk in, walk out. So I can see that. Mm-hmm. Now, you've got the barbecues there at all grounds. Look, I'll say West Adelaide have got the best barbecue. I will be fair at Richmond there so I'm showing my, that I'm not.
I haven't been to Richmond Oval for a couple of years, so might have to get down there for a snag.
So out of that, but I do think, it does. Look, the lighting, it had to be at Nord because of the lights. Mm-hmm. No other SANFL ground can do that with the lights. And that was how the flexibility needed. So there had to be 2 games at Nord. I thought that was just a no-brainer.
Yep.
I always thought Nord.
Totally agree. The reason I bring it up is I actually read a report from the AFL that there was an AFL person that came out to a couple of games last year. Absolutely loved the ground. This was on the basis that the gather round may happen. So there was a little bit of reconnaissance there. And he was highly glowing that, you're so close to the action. Obviously, the dimensions of the ground lengthwise are very, very similar. It does have a unique narrowness to the ground, the grandstand being almost on top of the players a little bit. It's just got that local suburban feel about it, and it is quite a unique ground. And like you said, undercover seating is a bonus. They've done a lot of work on the surface itself. Replacing of the lights was vital to that.
Yes.
The advertising banners around the oval, very, very interesting as well. That
I think they use that too much.
Yes,
I will say that.
Yep.
I think their colouring's still not right. You can actually lose the ball. I will say that. The first game of the year, the women's game, when I was sitting up in the parade end grandstand, that you did lose the ball sometimes. So I'd like to see them not change it so often.
Yep.
And I think there's still got to be tinkering and it's got to be turned down.
Absolutely. And the lights obviously was a big bonus as well. And then the Wolf Bluff Centre that's currently sort of just topped off Nord as having that little bit of modern facilities with the old school facilities and grandstands that just make it look absolutely fantastic.
I just thought it was Nord by space.
I think you're right. And again, favourite grounds that I've been around to and played on all of them actually. I'd have to say my second favourite is probably Alberton. But that's a Nord Port thing.
Yeah.
I didn't mind Sturt when it was dry. When it was wet, it was an absolute bog heap. But fantastically run facilities out at Unley Oval. You've talked about West Adelaide. I haven't been there for a couple of years. Centrals obviously do their thing quite well out at Elizabeth there, and South Adelaide, building a whole new club there back in the early 90s.
I will say
makes a big difference.
I've umpired on every suburban ground. And Richmond Oval was my favourite, but because it wasn't too small, you could have situations at Nord and Unley where, because of the sheer, you're on top of each other as another umpire.
It's hard to move.
Easier as a one umpire almost than a 2 or 3.
Yep.
Where I thought Richmond size-wise and the turf back years ago, we are going back a fair while, was great to run on as well.
Yep. Just a bit of a side note to that, with the AFL obviously coming there for the gather round. 4 umpires on a small ground. Yeah. That's going to be a very interesting. Are we going to see like a marked improvement of umpiring decisions because it's so tight? They're just going to call everything that they see.
It's a worry that could get very over umpired. Is
that's probably what I'm alluding to.
Look, I'm a fan of the 3 umpire system as an umpire, and all umpires say this privately. Doesn't work. All it is effectively the 1 umpire system where the 1 umpire runs like a rabbit while he's in the centre square and then swap over. If we could get the connection sorted out, the switchovers, 4 can work better than 3, but I've yet to see it.
Yep.
And I hate this bit of the umpire being out by the boundary line. Whoever thought of that idea because they were worried about player collisions, it's bullshit because it doesn't matter where you are. You could be Usain Bolt, and if there's a switch across the ground, there's no way in the world you can be in the right spot.
Yep.
And we see umpires guessing. And classic was the last minor round game, Nord-West last year, where Jack Herger had a free kick paid against him. Mm-hmm. When they actually saw it again, he was the one in front. It was just a total guess.
Yeah.
So that for me is the worry.
Very interesting, and yeah, like I said, just a bit of a side note question without notice there. That it could be very interesting that it could be over umpired or it could be completely under umpired, or they might make a modification for that round in only having 3 umpires on the ground. So I think the AFL got to look at that certainly for that game because it is slightly odd dimensions that they're not going to be used to. That's for sure. Yeah, interesting.
Agreed.
All right, mate. We move on to soccer.
What a fantastic win by Adelaide United!
Was it ever?
And the roar when we got the last goal was really reverberated. You could actually hear the emotion, just on the broadcasting side with just listening to it, let alone being there.
Yep.
Fantastic.
It was a game that we set our sights for. The unfortunate game the week before against Melbourne Victory, where we sort of got it. Sort of got a little bit taken away from us. Gee, we came out all guns blazing and 4-2 is a great result against top of the table Melbourne City.
No, they're playing exciting football, soccer.
Mm-hmm.
They're scoring plenty of goals. You can argue there's a few too many being scored against them.
Well, and I've got that down on my run sheet that, at the moment they've only got a goal difference of +4. Second place team is +10 and +17 for the Melbourne City as well. So, yeah, you don't want to be leaking too many goals in the game of soccer, that's for sure.
Well, it effectively really means we're another point behind.
Yeah.
Because if we finish even, we're going to finish behind on goal difference. So,
yeah, very, very interesting that when I did the stats on that we were leaking goals a little bit, but we're also scoring plenty at the same time. So it's a bit of the yin and the yang at the moment.
Yep.
But Newcastle Jets, we play this week away, and then obviously back at Cooper Stadium the following week. Got to consolidate this good run at the moment as well.
Yeah, just, they're a young side, predominantly from Adelaide. Full hats off to Calvier and Adelaide United in that regard. So, yeah, you can't help but be impressed.
Now, mate, we haven't touched a lot on the EPL.
No.
In all our episodes so far, but I think we have to now.
What a bizarre result.
7-0.
And it was 42-minute mark. It was even. 0-0 at 42 minutes. So, yeah. Yes.
Absolutely crazy result. There's a lot of people saying this will be a game that will be remembered for 100 years.
Oh, look, in terms of it's just such a bizarre scoreline. I admit I haven't heard from my son this week about it. Daniel's sort of he's gone missing in action as a United supporter.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard from too many of them myself either.
Yes.
Unbelievable result, though. 7-0. That's
incredible.
That's at Premier League level.
It's extraordinary. That's at least the equivalent of that magnificent number of 119. When Port went down in the the grand final where it was a cliffhanger at the opening bounce in 2007.
Yep. Crazy things. Yes. The EPL's pretty open at the moment, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how this affects them going forward, Manchester United.
Yeah. Oh, look, I actually hope Arsenal end up winning it. I'd love to see a change of the guard, not just Man City again. Mm-hmm. Look, who knows what's going to happen.
Chelsea around the mark as well. So
yeah, it'll be interesting what happens to the potential penalty still to Man City. Yep. We've got to wait and see in that regard on the fair play side of things. So there's plenty of things to happen there.
Absolutely. All right, mate, we're going to take another quick break. We don't have a guest with us tonight, but we've just had to record a touch earlier, and we did have somebody lined up, but we'll get him in a couple of weeks' time.
We did have Peter McIntyre lined up because in terms of we had spoken about the Sheffield Shield where South Australia held on. So I did have Macca line up, but unfortunately, with other things have happened this week. We had to record earlier than normal. Yep. So Macca's away next week, but we will get him on at some
Absolutely,
stage.
And we want to talk about that famous Redbacks win that we did in our flashback segment a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I did tell him I wanted a description of every ball.
We're going to get it.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Happy days.
We'll scoot into the happy days for today. Happy birthday this week to Lockie Scholl.
Yeah, look, I like him. been a bit bemused how he's fallen out of favour at Adelaide because he actually has got a good leg.
Oh, has he ever?
Which I think's a real weakness at Adelaide.
Yep.
So I hope he does establish himself again because I've been considering where Adelaide have been, I just shook my head in disbelief at some players who were picked in front of him last year.
Yep.
So yeah.
Played 38 games in 4 seasons. How important is he to Adelaide's continuing improvement, but finding a spot for him on the wing?
I think he could be important, but not if they don't play him.
Yeah. I love his speed. I just remember during the pandemic years when obviously footy was on the TV pretty much every day of the week there for quite some time and we didn't have too much other to do than watch it.
Yep.
He was lacing out guys off that wing and going at flat-out speed. I just can't understand why Adelaide hasn't found a spot for him. The only thing I can think of is that it's his defensive pressure.
Yeah, it's got me a bit beat. So
Two-way running, maybe?
Maybe. Who knows?
Very interesting. This week, cricket. Rod Marsh bowls 10 overs for 51 runs in a very dull draw against Pakistan. I had to look twice at this.
Yeah, every
Rod
player
Marsh
bowled.
bowling?
Every player bowled.
Unbelievable.
It was, just going on and on. And I think Marshy tried to say, well, hang on, I want at least more than the one token one over because I want to try and get a wicket.
Yep.
But it was, I think it was 500 odd each side. And, basically they'd still be playing.
I really did have to do a double take thinking I'm either dreaming this or someone slipped something in my drink last night at bowls because it was an odd statistic that came up and I went, hang on, Rod Marsh bowling 10 overs?
No, I admit I can remember that. I can say that I am showing my age.
Crazy. For the ones that want to watch it on YouTube, go for your life.
Yeah, good cure for insomnia.
Absolutely. All right, mate. This week in 1986, tennis, Martina Navratilova actually becomes the first player to earn $10 million. Bit of a drop in the ocean compared to what they do these days.
Almost like loose change what's in the glove box compared to now. It's just insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look, she's an all-time champion. That's probably the easiest way to put it.
She's on that Mount Rushmore that we talk about quite regularly, but I think she's probably just slightly elevated on that at the moment. Always comes up in my research, and this one was an interesting one considering the amount of money that's thrown around in a lot of these professional sports these days. And, she was there at the beginning of professional sport, especially in the female era as well.
Yes.
Mate, cricket, a bit near and dear to our hearts. 87, David Hooks and Wayne Phillips, guest of ours, who will tell us about his exploits. But this one here made the grade. Hooksy and Phillips make a stand for SA of 462 runs. Hooksy 306 not out.
Flipper was 260 odd. Yeah, basically they could still be batting too.
Yep.
We declared and won that game very early, and there's been a bit of a joke that Hooksy declared too early and they could have put on 700. So,
yep.
Yeah, it was...
306 not out's a pretty fair effort.
And you mentioned Marshy there. Well, David Boone bowled a lot for Tasmania in that innings as well.
Wow, there you go. I did not know that.
Yes, he was in danger of damaging Pickett's more than... middle of the bats and Pickett's were going off Booney in that game. And, it was... I was there for part of that partnership, and, it was... It was pretty incredible to watch.
Was that one of the ones you talked about with Sticks that you'd go away, go to the bar, go to the bathroom, come back, you sort of knew they were still going to be there?
Yeah, you could have gone away for a week and they still would have been there that
Gotcha.
Yes.
I might have to try and find some footage of that one. I dug pretty deep in my research, but not that deep. So, Booney bowling, interesting.
Yes.
Mate, and this week, 2022, the Major League Baseball, after a 99-day lockout... the MLB Players Association reached a collective bargaining agreement which allowed them to still play a full 162-game season.
It's mind-boggling too what they do earn, and you still can't work out how you can pay that much out. How do you get that much income to still make it back?
And you got private owners as well.
It's mind-boggling.
It is absolutely interesting that the most professional sports, the ball is always moving or the goalposts are always moving. Very interesting that it took 99 days to sort this one out. Yeah,
it's not sport really. It's it's hard to comment on in that way. It's so bizarre.
Yep.
Extra time. Big finish.
And mate, we had a bit of fun last week with a bit of the toss-up and who do you choose? So we're going to do it again this week, obviously with the AFL season only 10 or 9 days away. I've got a toss-up here. Port Adelaide and Brisbane, we talked about it earlier. Round 1, who you got?
Look, I think it's just almost too hard to go against Brisbane at this stage. I know it's here, so that means Port are a big chance. Mm-hmm. But at this stage, I'm going Brisbane, which I've always been. If 50-50, you go the home side. Well, in this case, I can't make 50-50 for Port. Even though I dismiss trials, I just think adding Dunkley, Ashcroft to debut and Gunston, that's pretty hard. So
for me, it's Brisbane.
Yeah,
and I just for the sheer reason that I think Brisbane have got their deck chairs in order at the moment.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue with that. But I'm still saying once the real season starts, it's a new season.
Just to finish off on this one, what is the fallout for either of these teams if they lose round 1? Because really...
No, I'm not going round 1 fallout.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's too early.
If Port lose 30 minutes after that game, they'll be close to burning down Alberton if he loses.
Oh, look, it's hilarious the way they carry on, but I still think that's too early. But look, I think if it's after round 4 or 5, and if they're 0-5, then I think he's in trouble.
Port Adelaide have got Brisbane round 1, Collingwood round 2, the Crows in round 3. I can't remember round 4, but then they've got the Western Bulldogs. So it's not an easy draw at all.
If they lose their first 3 and get beaten by Adelaide, I'd say
sayonara. Yep. I think Fagan's got a little bit more runs on the board as far as
they've just signed him on for 2 more years.
And I think they're going to be, again, as the season goes on, they're going to get better and better and better as well, especially with those add-ups.
Now, who have you got? South or Centrals? Mate?
Okay, so SANFL, we're going to toss between the SANFL and AFL. Who have I got? Who finishes higher? I am going to say South Adelaide.
So am I.
Yep. I just think South have built on the last couple of years, have been around the mark. Centrals are in a bit of a rebuild phase. They're going to...
Look, they were okay last week against Nord, but they've got so many new players. It was great to catch up with a previous guest on the show. Johnny Wynn was over from Perth, so it was great to catch up with 2-8.
Yep.
Amusing as always. He did walk up to me with a white hat pulled right down. I'm thinking, who in the hell is this? And then I've picked Winnie's voice and gone, you bloody idiot. So,
yep. Yes. That dry sense of humour coming through once again.
Very much so. So, no, I'll have South.
Yeah, I'll have South as well. All right, AFL, we'll go back to the AFL. Fremantle or Collingwood, who finishes high?
Toss of the coin. I'll go Collingwood.
I'll go Freo.
Yeah, either case.
And that's why, it's a toss-up, and that's why we're here debating it a little bit. All right, my next one for you is Richmond or Geelong.
Just purely the way Barmy was, when I was with Barmy, that probably as much as I've ever heard him talk up someone new in Taranto.
Okay.
It's unusual.
So he's impressed?
Yeah, it's very unusual for N-Balm to be that enthused. They have got a few injuries. Both teams with a few injuries early. Toss the coin. We'll split it. I'll go Richmond.
I'll go Richmond as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Geelong, are going to be around the mark.
Yes.
But I do worry that injury and the length of last season may just catch up with them as the year goes along. And I think Richmond were close enough last year with a few tight losses that they only need to turn around 3 or 4 of those, and it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
The only thing that works in Geelong's favour is playing down at Geelong.
Yes.
That's where it helps them.
Very true.
Playing their, 10 or 11 games down in Geelong.
I don't think they've got quite as many as that, but it's still it is actually a home ground.
Yes, so that keeps them in the argument, and once again, it's a flip of the coin, and hence the reason we're calling it a toss-up, mate.
Yep.
All right, last one.
Eagles or North Adelaide, mate?
Yeah, SANFL, Eagles or North Adelaide? I think North Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm North. But I
think the Eagles are going to be around the mark too.
Yeah, they've picked a few up, and look, they had a lot of good juniors last year. Be very interested to see how young Welsh goes. That's Scotty Welsh's son.
Yes.
I was very, very impressed with commentating him in the 18s last year.
Yep.
And they went top in the 16s, the Eagles.
Yep.
So they've got some youth.
Absolutely.
And Rome Burgoyne's another one.
Okay. Keep an eye out.
On memory, I think that's Peters.
Peters, yep.
I think. Yep. On memory.
Okay. I think North Adelaide, I think they've recruited reasonably well. A bit like Norwood, those systems and procedures are already in place. You talk about the AFL teams with Melbourne and Brisbane and Geelong having, those systems in place that will hold them in good stead. I think North Adelaide are going to be around the mark.
Damon White's an interesting one.
It is an interesting one. Recruited as an older recruit.
34, 35.
Was playing at Broadview last year.
Broadview, yep. So, it's interesting. See how his body goes.
Very good. And just off the cuff, without notice, who do you see winning the premiership this year? We've talked about it briefly previously, going it's going to be pretty tight. But who's your smoky?
Maybe the Eagles is the smoky, or Adelaide.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say North Adelaide.
Yeah, I think North aren't a smoky, though. I'm probably rating.
No, okay. If you're talking purely smokies, I reckon Adelaide as well, and I reckon South Adelaide.
Yes, no, we're in agreement.
Yeah, if it was who I think's probably going to win it, it's going to be hard to go past a North Grand Final or a North Eagles Grand Final.
Yep,
that's probably where I'm at as well.
Yeah, we're pretty happy at the moment.
Yep,
couple of guys.
Not as many injuries.
Oh, we've got a few injuries, but we think we're going to have a bit more depth.
Yep.
So
interesting. And just before we finish off, mate, Australia are currently 2 for 86. So we'll watch that with interest over the next 24 hours, and hopefully next Thursday night when we record again, we're jumping up and down with another win in India.
Look, and Jack Saunders got concussed for Nord last week, but there was an ambulance called and the game stopped for a fair while. Wow. Was a few concerns on other matters, but the signs in terms of everything else seems okay. We'll just wait and see after the concussion.
Will Task come in with Neuroflex to test that?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. I will give also his due. I was pretty impressed that a couple of his messages were he wanted to go out on the Saturday night with the sympathy with the females there. So I've only spoken to him briefly before, but bit of banter with a guy was standing who was texting him back and forth was quite funny. So, it was good to see he had a bit of character
sense of humour for sure. All right, mate, we'll keep an eye on that one, and we'll finish up on that, mate. And as per usual, we promise to do better.
We'll make sure we've got a guest next week.
We will. Thank you.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at SportsCast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.